What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to this special sort of midweek episode of the Most Wanted Topics podcast. It's me, Atomic Tommy, flying solo today. And we are here to do a couple of things. One, we had a request to discuss and review The Marvels, the newest Marvel movie that came out last Friday. We'll be talking about that. And also, because I know, this is sort of a special thing, doing an episode midweek, I figured we'd bring on our good friend Keith Champagne to do a bit of an interview, talk about all things New Pain, his current projects, upcoming projects, all that stuff. So look forward to that a little bit later on in this week's episode, this midweek's episode. It still feels weird. But yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk about The Marvels. I just saw the movie about an hour ago, so it's fresh. It's rolling up here. And man, I walked into this movie thinking, I didn't really know how to feel. I heard the reviews. There's a lot of people telling me it was going to be really bad. A lot of people telling me it wasn't that bad. It was very mixed. So I kind of walked in kind of thinking, yeah, I don't know. It might not be that bad, right? Every time there's a new Marvel movie out, it feels like people will say, oh, it's the worst one. This is the worst MCU movie. This is it right here. So every time I walk into a Marvel movie hearing that, I kind of take that old grain of salt and just kind of see how it turns out. But unfortunately, this time, I might have underestimated this movie's ability to suck. Excuse me. I think it's pretty, at least in my opinion, the worst Marvel movie to date is Thor: Love and Thunder, tied with She-Hulk. I know She-Hulk is one of those things where it's either you love it or hate it. Personally, I didn't like it very much. And I was kind of thinking, man, could this movie be worse than Thor 4? I don't know. It takes skill to be that bad. And this movie's tied up there. It can be discussed which is worse. I think marginally, by just a sliver of an inch, just a small sliver, that the Marvels might be slightly better than Thor: Love and Thunder. But that's not saying much because, here's the bottom, right? Here's the bottom, and then here's Thor: Love and Thunder. It's like it falls off the bottom, okay? And this movie, it absolutely blew my mind. I couldn't believe how bad it was. It got off to a decent start. Like, for maybe about the first half hour, I think. I don't know. I wasn't keeping time, but maybe about the first half hour, I was like, this isn't so bad. It's not great, but I've seen worse. And then about that halfway point, and I remember distinctly, it took a turn. Like, it was on the edge of the cliff. It was there, and then it just fell. It plummeted. And it tried to climb back. It threw the rope up there. The rope latched on and it started climbing, but every time it got an inch, it would fall back down to the bottom again. So, yeah, this movie was bad. A lot of people say that Iman Vellani, Miss Marvel, was really the standout of this movie. And I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but a lot of people say that she's the standout of this movie. And, I got to give credit where credit's due. She really was. It was definitely the only, I'd say, one of the three main cast that looked like she was having any fun in the film. Monica Rambeau, I'm sorry, I forget the actress's name who plays her, but that character, I found myself questioning why she was there the entire movie. She didn't really do much. I'm going to try and avoid spoilers because, it hasn't even been a week since the movie came out, right? So I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, there was a lot of, they tried to set up a lot of, like, emotional, like, ties between these characters. None of them really worked, especially between Captain Marvel and Monica. They tried to set up all these big, like, emotional moments, but that didn't really work because we're not familiar with any of their, like, we know the very basics of their emotional conflict, but beyond that, it's kind of like, why should I care about these two characters' emotional problems? So those big emotional moments kind of fell flat. They didn't really have enough time to develop and flourish, and they didn't spend enough time to build up on it to give it the payoff that I think they wanted for it. The villain was mediocre at best. This movie was really, really bad. Again, I still think Thor 4 may have been worse. You've probably heard that the end credit scenes are the best, guys, and you know they were cool. I'm not gonna spoil what's in them, but they were cool. But after you've sat through an hour and a half of, excuse my language here, dog shit, it just doesn't. It really just doesn't have that epic, oh my god, that I think the movie wanted it to have. So, and you know, man, it was like I wanted to come on here today and say that, you know, the Marvels wasn't so bad, but I can't say that. It was bad. There was some really strange writing choices, like characters would make decisions that don't really make any sense, especially towards the end. You know, Monica makes a decision at the end of the movie that I to this, you know, still don't really understand why she makes that decision, but there's a lot of that in there. You know, one of the things that was really shown in the trailers was like the power switching. Like they would switch powers and they would, you know, like every time they would use their powers, they would switch places. That's a pretty big thing in the film. But it, you know, it gets a little old after a while. It doesn't stick around the whole film, but at some point it just loses its, like, oh, you know, it starts like, oh, that's kind of a cute gimmick, whatever, but it kind of loses that element about halfway into the film, and you know, it just starts dragging at some point. You know, another thing that I will say, one other thing that I'll say that I didn't mind about the film was Nick Fury. You know, after Secret Invasion, it was kind of nice to see Nick Fury, you know, look and act cool for a little bit. Secret Invasion really did not do Nick Fury any favors, so to see him, you know, actually kick some butt in this movie was kind of cool. Definitely deserved and earned, I think. But yeah, you know, maybe we'll do like a spoiler talk on this movie later, like where I actually talk about the things that happened in the movie and discuss what the, you know, the big points in the movie that everybody talks about. But right now I'm going to keep it spoiler free just because I know not everybody's gotten a chance to see it and I don't want to ruin anything, but man, this movie was just bad. You know, it really wasn't good. And it's definitely not worth a rewatch. I think when it comes out of Disney Plus, I'll probably forget about it. You know, there's more to say. There's more that I can say, but honestly, you know, there are hundreds of people on the internet who are going to make videos talking about why this movie's bad. People who can probably do it better than I can, so I think I'll just leave it there for now. So that was my take on the Marvels. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. But now we're going to take it over to an interview with Keith Champagne. Joining me today is my personal friend, a great friend of the business, a great friend of the family, the wonderful, the talented Keith Champagne, everybody. Keith, how you doing today?
Hey, Tommy, what's up, my friend? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you. So, you know, I think today we're going to talk mostly New Pain. We're going to talk your older projects that you have out currently, some upcoming projects that I think people are going to be excited to hear about. Let's hope. To kick, yeah, let's hope. And to kick things off, you know, for people who maybe aren't too familiar with New Pain or maybe don't know the whole story, I guess I wanted to ask, you know, what really got you into this world of indie comics? You know, what inspired New Pain, and what do you like most about it?
Well, I think for me, it comes down to two things, freedom and control. You know, I've had a really fortunate career working with, you know, DC Comics especially, also with Dark Horse and Marvel. And when you work kind of on a totem pole or you're a cog in the machine, sometimes you're treated like you're on a totem pole or you're a cog in the machine. Not that I haven't had a lot of great experiences and met a lot of good people and created a lot of really cool comics over the years. But you reach a certain point, and I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, where I just want to do what I want to do. And I don't want to deal with other people's bullshit. Can I say bullshit on your show, Tommy?
That's fine. It's okay.
All right. Thank goodness. Otherwise, I'd start over. So, you know, New Pain just sort of organically grew about I guess the Seeds of New Pain would really start. How many years has it been? Probably 6 or 7 years ago, when my friend Tom New and I did the Kickstarter for the original Switch book. And I guess that kind of put the seed in my head of trying to do more projects through crowdfunding, because I really enjoyed just being in charge of my own destiny.
Yeah.
And as a few years later, I did another one. And then I worked with a company, Ominous Press, which was known as, I guess, the Bart Sears company, and they did a lot of Jim Starlin books, Drug Chart stuff. But I worked with them for a couple of years running their Kickstarters and learned a lot about crowdfunding that way, and decided when I left that company to just do my own thing. So I called my buddy Tom Nguyen, and we had joked off and on over the years about creating a company called New Pain, which is, Nguyen and champagne combined, and said, hey, let's give this thing a shot. And so that's what we're doing now. We're giving it a shot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've put out some amazing comic books over the years, even, from DC, even to New Pain, especially Daybreak. I've been loving Daybreak.
Well, thanks, buddy.
And I think a follow-up to that, you mentioned, you now have the freedom, you have the control, right? And I kind of wanted to maybe ask, you worked with Marvel, you worked with DC, these big two companies, and now you're in New Pain, and other than the freedom and control, what would you say are some other big differences that you see between, that side of the industry and this one,
Well, I guess the biggest, most practical difference is when I worked for DC or Dark Horse or Marvel more often, I made more money. And when I do these New Pain books, I lose more money. So that's a big difference right there. But, you can't buy love. And I love making my own comics. But I think, the biggest difference, I guess I guess it's okay that I say the word bullshit, but there's just the lack of bullshit involved. I don't have to bounce ideas off of editors. One of the stories I've told a couple of times, I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry, my phone just texted. One of the stories I've told a couple of times is that last time I was writing Superman for DC, DC changed my ending to the storyline, and out of the blue, everything kind of built up to Superman knocking out Sinestro in the story that I wrote. And Sinestro certainly earned that whooping by the end of the story. And so everything, it was a coup de grace. It all built up to this moment where Superman finally uncorks on Sinestro and sends it flying, and the good guy wins. Mm-hmm. It's all drawn and everything. And then at the last minute, DC emails me and says, hey, we can't have Superman punch anybody. And I was like, what? Superman's been punching people for 80 years. How come when I write Superman, he can't punch somebody anymore? And I didn't get a satisfactory answer to that question. And I basically said, guys, go write your own ending then. You're ruining my story. It all builds up to this moment and you're taking that moment away. So just do it yourself. And decided not to write for DC anymore after that.
Yeah,
So, I just don't want to deal with garbage like that anymore. People who don't understand the story structure that I'm building, or are too short-sighted, or just make random rules like that are don't make any sense. So now no one can make sure. I can make sure Daybreak punches anybody that she wants. I can make sure this character, the Jump of my new book, can jump anywhere he wants to jump.
Yeah,
can jump like a frog if he wants. It's just there's less headaches, I guess, involved.
Yeah,
and also the opportunity to grow something from the ground floor up is fun. It's exciting at this stage of my career.
Yeah, and I really liked what you said there. I think, there needs to be more of that sort of inside, stories and discussion as to what it's really like to work for these companies. There's a lot of people that I know that I've talked to who, say, man, it's always been my dream to work in these places and it must be great. And I've heard a lot of good things, but I think it's good to really hear what it is like to kind of work for these big companies, and I think
Yeah. Well, I guess that inside knowledge is good. Um, I've had many more good experiences working with the bigger companies than I have bad over the years.
Oh yeah,
So I don't want to paint it with too broad of a brush.
right.
But
Yeah,
at this stage in my career, I feel like I've paid my dues, and now it's time to try to like make the comics I've always wanted to make. And
yeah.
it certainly is a lot more fulfilling to do that myself.
Well, that's definitely, I definitely can respect that. I think that's an awesome, very personal answer. So I think that's great. Switching over a little bit to more New Pain stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Daybreak. It's what really inspired Daybreak. What was the idea behind that? Where did that come from?
So I mean, Daybreak originally was an idea that I came up with for Superman, which is that I got to thinking one day about how the sun could cause cancer, and Superman is powered by the sun. So, like, what if somehow Superman got cancer, from the source of his power? And as I got to thinking about that idea, it really stayed with me. And a lot of times I'll have an idea and it just gets flushed away as fast as it comes into my head. And I tend to not act on an idea until it sticks around on its own for a little bit. And that tells me there's something worth it. There's something worth exploring there. So I thought about contacting DC and being like, hey, I got this idea, I think, for a cool Superman story. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Last time I heard DC, it didn't work out that great. And also, why would I want to give them my idea at this point? Like, we're in the IP age where, everyone should own as much of their own stuff as they can. So I, basically took the germ of the idea and created my own solo powered hero, Daybreak. And then came up with, a story, built the story out from that. So built a whole new world and the Doc Matter character in Daybreak. If you follow the Superman analogy, that would have been Lex Luthor in the storyline.
Right.
But, created my own arch villain for Daybreak and then sort of build up a mythology between them. That a lot of it hasn't been revealed yet in the book, but we're starting to hint at it. And I think the story is just better for it. I think it's a richer story. It's a more fun story. Definitely a more unfiltered story, like more of how I want to write things with a balance of humor and drama and action and hopefully, characters that you care about quickly and get invested in. And then as things get more dire for Daybreak, hopefully it matters more to the reader that way, that they care about the character.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, but that's just writing 101 basics. Like, you want to get people to invest in the characters, and when you turn the screws, it matters. And that's what I try to do with Daybreak.
Yeah, well, it's definitely been paying off. I've been loving it. I think it's great. I think it's, it's you on a page. I think it's really good. And yeah, so moving over. I heard you have a bit of an announcement for us here. Some new projects you have coming up. Tell us about that.
Well, a week ago I launched New Pain's latest Kickstarter, which is a 2-in-1 Kickstarter featuring a book called NPC Jump and also a book called Uncovered. And so I'm happy to say that as of this morning, the campaign is funded. So now we're going to go into the stretch goal phase, try to build some breathing room into the funding goal in case anyone cancels. We'll still be, in good shape. Mm-hmm. But 2 new projects for half the campaign, I guess, is my big announcement.
Yeah. Well, hey, funding a project in 1 week, that's worth celebrating, man. That's awesome.
I got the applause.
You got the applause for that. That's awesome, man. Congratulations on that. We definitely backed it, and we're excited for it.
Thank you. I didn't realize you guys backed it, but I appreciate that.
We backed the combo where we'll get both of them and the digitals and all that stuff, and we're definitely looking forward to it. You mentioned that the NPC Jump is going to be a bit more interactive in between, the comic and the audience. Tell me a little bit about that.
So the NPC of NPC Jump stands for New Pain Challenge. and it is an attempt to do a more interactive kind of reading experience with our, with our audience. The story in NPC Jump, the phrase I've been using is it doesn't end in a cliffhanger. It ends with a brick wall. It ends in a way that makes it impossible for the story to continue to a second issue for the character of Jump. And the challenge part of it is that throughout the 24 pages story in this book, there are clues. There are plot points. There are, everything could be a clue. There are red herrings to misdirect people. And what we're challenging to do is figure out how we're going to continue to the second issue. And so there's an email address that's set up. It's printed on the inside front cover of the book. And submit your guesses. And the first person that gets it right or gets it closest. And I've had a couple of people that I've read the book on the side so far, and they can't figure it out. So I feel like it's going to be challenging for people. But the first person that kind of gets close or gets it right, they're going to be a character in the second issue. We're going to put them in the book. They're going to name a character after them, and it's going to be an important role. I've already written the second issue. I finalized it last week. And, there is a character there just waiting to be named after one of our backers that want to play. So, yeah, it's an attempt to engage the reader a little more, an attempt maybe to market a book in a different way, and an attempt just to make it more fun for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't really think that's not really been done too much. I think, the only thing, I mean, sometimes, there'll be like votes where, the audience will get to vote, but to have a comic book that's this interactive and with the ability to, be in a comic book as, yourself as a character, I think that's awesome. And, that's a really cool idea.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Hopefully you enter.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll win.
Maybe I'll win. Who knows? I'll take a crack at it. We'll see.
Your idea might be so good that maybe I'll steal it and write the second issue using your theory.
Yeah, that would be an honor, but I don't think I'm that good.
That'd be a lawsuit, not an honor.
that'd be a lot, yeah. But yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a great idea.
So anyway, so the other project of the 2-in-1 is called Uncovered, and I've been lucky, the past couple of years. I know most everybody in the business, and so a lot of guys have come and drawn variant covers for our books. And so Uncovered it's a very simple project. We're just collecting all this amazing variant cover art into one volume. I think it'll be popular at conventions. It's something I want on my shelf, and I think some of our readers are excited to get it too.
Yeah, that's you've had a lot of great talent working in New Pain and a lot of great art. So I think to sort of collect that into one sort of book is, I think, awesome, and I'm definitely excited to get it. And that sort of actually brings me over to the next and last thing I really wanted to talk about today, and that's some of the talent that you do have at New Pain. There's a lot of people working with you and on these books, and I think is there anybody you really wanted to highlight? Take me through some of the talent you have working with you. Sure.
Well, first of all, New Pain's unofficial slogan is "Big Two Talent, Better Books," which is how I'm marketing a little bit. But we've got my good friend Doug Monkey did a variant cover for us. Pat O'Leaf, I think you say his name, is a Marvel DC artist for years and years. He's done a couple of covers. Freddie Williams III, Ali Garza. The list goes on and on. It's Kevin West, Val Semix, the legendary Val Semix from Lobo. It's fun that I get to sometimes tag these people off the bench, or sometimes they make time to help me out. But to get a little cover work out of them, I get to pay them a little bit, and it feels good. It feels good to build something. And I have a couple of good color artists that I normally use. A guy, Rich Stanke, who colored Jump #1. He also colored a lot of stuff on Uncovered. And a guy from India named Priya Ply, who does an amazing job on things. So it's like you can't go wrong with this Uncovered book. It really is fantastic looking.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
except for Tom Noonan's covers. We can skip those. But the rest of them are great.
You can pass on those. That's fine. Yeah, you can just kind of cut those out. That's all right. Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely got a stacked lineup over there. You got a lot of great people on that team, and New Pain is thriving and doing awesome, and I couldn't be happier. So, just awesome, man.
Yeah, and hopefully, if any of your listeners or watchers want to jump in and check out the campaign page, I'm sure there's going to be a link for them to do so.
Yep.
And if they like what they see, join the team, become a new Painiac.
New Painiac. I like that. But yeah, we'll definitely have the link to the Kickstarter, the campaign down in the description for anybody who want to go back it. Check it out.
All right. Yeah. Hey, Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you.
You're my OG New Painiac, and I'm pretty sure it won't be long before publishing you professionally too. So
I hope. One can only hope. But thank
you.
Make
the magic happen.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking to me. It's been great. This was my first interview, if you can believe it. This is, I hope I wasn't too bad.
No, you're great. I think you're doing this your whole life practically.
That definitely. Well, that's more my dad. My dad's been doing it way longer than I have. But thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll see you. I'm sure we'll see you again sometime.
Atomic Tommy, you're the bomb.
All right. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.